Okay, as I mentioned, just for those who weren't here yet, for most people, I have pretty reasonably caught up. A couple people maybe a little behind in a couple things. You need to get caught up. Those that are really behind, we really have to work, and we'll be glad to help you to work to try to get caught up. You cannot afford to get too far behind in this half of the semester. We're going to start verbs very soon, and you don't want to be stuck dealing with nouns and prepositions and adjectives while trying to learn verbs. That is not a feasible approach. So we only have a couple of weeks to get caught up. So if we can help you, we'll do that. We're offering a potential study group that's outside of this classroom, and we could set up a Zoom. If you're interested, send me a note. Yeah, I'm interested in a study group. It'd be with the students. Y'all talk to each other, help each other. That's the best way. Also, some tutoring. We're kind of limited on how much we can do, but if you're really behind, I know there's two students right now. We're going to do some a little bit of tutoring on the side just to help get caught up. Because if you're behind now, you're in real trouble, depending on how far behind you are. And because once we start verbs, I don't know if you could finish it. I mean, you really have to work at catching up. And I know you got other stuff going on. So anyway, that's what we said off the recording in more detail. Wanted to make sure those that aren't here yet at least hear that. I want to, as we begin to move into chapter 10 on construct nouns. This is a little bit of a different and can feel complex. It's really not. Grammatical structure, and we'll take my time and try to go through it. And obviously, when you do the homework and the review with Nate, Damien, and Andres, ask a lot of questions and try to make sure you have a good grasp of it. But it is important. And in Hebrew grammar or in English grammar, we have the word of, O-V-O-F. And of often shows relationship or possession, the love of God, the glory of God, the law of God. It shows relationships or possession sometimes. Now that's not all it does, but that's its primary function. So we're going to learn today that what's called the construct chain is where you take two or more nouns and you put them in a chain, a link. You put them side by side, and some of these nouns are in a construct form or state, and some of them are in one would be in what's called the absolute state. All the nouns you've learned so far, all the vocabulary words and nouns are your lexical forms are actually referred to as the absolute state, which means basically it's what you're going to find in the dictionary. It's what you're going to find in the lexicon or your vocabulary list. It's the absolute. But yet each one of those nouns can be represented or grammatically structured differently to be what's called a construct state. It's the same noun. Okay, but we're going to spell it with different vowel letterings. I'll show you why. We're going to spell it with different vowels or actually reduced vowels. And what's happening is that the accent generally on most Hebrew words is the last syllable. But in a construct chain, that accent moves all the way to the absolute noun, the primary. And so there's no accent on any words associated in the chain except for the absolute. And so when you move the accent, that changes the vocabulary, the vowel structure, vowel pointing, and generally reduces the vowels from long to short to reduced vowels. So that's basically what we're going to look at today. For example, in the phrase Beit Yahweh, Beit Adonai, Beit Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, literally means house of the Lord. Grammatically, this construction talks and expresses a relationship and even a belonging, a possession. The first noun is called the construct. It's just the same noun you've had before. We're going to change the spelling with the vowel pointers. We're going to reduce the vowels. And basically, it stands alone, or it cannot stand alone. That's the key. The construct noun cannot be independent. It has to be dependent upon the absolute noun. And so it finds its identity, it finds its meaning, it finds its purpose in the second noun, or the absolute, the last noun of the chain. Chain can have more than two nouns. It can have three or four. The last one is always the absolute. Well, unless there's an adjective. So that's what we're going to look at today. But I want to emphasize now. Now we're talking grammatical structure here, but we find the same kind of thing in our spiritual relationship with God, our Creator. It's this picture of a relationship. We're not independent. We find our completeness, we find our purpose, we find our belonging when we're connected to Him. Basically, we are the construct. He is the absolute. Just as a Beit Yahweh, Beit Yod He Vav He, Beit Adonai, however you want to do that, depends upon what follows. In this case, Yahweh. We are the house of the Lord. It shows a possession. It shows a connection. It shows a relationship. It's His house. In the same way, would say the Hebrew phrase Yam Adonai, or Yam Yod He Vav He, or Yam should be Aim, not Yam, Aim Adonai, Aim Yahweh, Aim Yod He Vav He. And that is, we are the people of the Lord. And so our identity is derived from our relationship with the absolute. So, and the Hebrew Bible is filled with these kind of construct chains. They're everywhere. And oftentimes it describes a relationship and ownership, and especially when you're talking about to Yahweh. These phrases show ownership and show His ownership and character, His glory, are revealed through that relationship, right? Torah Yod He Vav He, the law of the Lord, Psalm 19, verse 7. Basically, His law, His instruction, His teaching belongs to Him and reflects who He is. Kavod Yahweh, the glory of the Lord, from Exodus 24 and verse 17. And glory radiates from Him and directs and His purpose, holiness to His people. Each of these phrases, including, let's say, Radzon Yahweh, the favor of the Lord, Psalm 40, verse 9, it directs a relationship. Everything is good and everything is holy is defined by the relationship of God, Yahweh. And we share in that relationship as if we're the construct and He's the absolute. We are dependent upon the absolute. And that, I think, when you sort of see it in that light, then understanding these construct chains becomes a little more recognizable. We even find not a construct chain, but we find the theology, the same construct idea in the Greek. 1 Corinthians 3, verse 23, you are Christ and Christ is God's. There's this dependency and a theological, sort of a spiritual theological construct chain, not a literal one. Our identity depends upon belonging to another, to Him. Just as the Hebrew construct noun is really incomplete without its absolute, and when you put a noun that has meaning and has purpose, you put it in the construct form, its meaning and purpose is now dependent upon the absolute that it's connected to. And we are incomplete apart from God. And so as we move into chapter 10, I want to sort of give that background behind it, because it helps, I think, to see how that relationship really matters, because that's really what we're talking about. So with that, I want to go ahead and share and begin chapter 10. Any questions so far on what we'll look at? Let me share the screen.
None so far. Well,
Gracias, hermano. Ben, I know very few phrases. Ben, I know very few phrases, but I'm trying to pick it up. So I can do gracias, hermano, pretty easily. I mean, it's almost like I know Spanish. That's a joke. All right, so I want to begin as we look in. I'm going to follow the book here. We're going to cover the basic grammar of the Hebrew construct chain, okay? And we are going to talk about what changes and why. And I think the why, for me, it matters. But it could be too much for some people. I mean, what we're going to do is we're going to look at why and what's happening with the vowel reductions. And I want you to know that everything that we see that's occurring in these vowel reductions, we've already seen. We've already learned. We just maybe not learned, but we know about it, and we're just going to apply it here. So all I really do is that this absolute noun, this lexical form, when we put it in a construct form, we change the spelling. And we're going to see, and that's what we do. And because we change the spelling, now we can make it, we can translate the word of. In English, we have this little two-letter prepositional word of. In Greek, it's the same thing. They don't have the word of in Greek, so they use a grammatical form called a genitive case ending to help recognize that there's a relationship exists. And we translate that relationship by using the word of. The same thing in Hebrew. They don't have a word for of. How do you say the love of God, the love of Yahweh, the law of the Lord? How do you say that without the word of? Well, Hebrew doesn't have the word of. What they do is they basically use a grammatical structure to bring that out and to show that relationship. And so that's what we're going to do here. That makes sense? You guys okay so far? Good. Slide 1 out of 20. We're okay. That's my sarcasm. All right. So here's what we're doing. Like I mentioned, there's no word for of in the biblical Hebrew. Rather, Hebrew expresses possession or relationship between two nouns in what's called the construct chain. So to get the servant of the king, we put it in the construct chain format. Now, the way it works is the absolute noun is always the last noun, underlying noun, last noun of the chain. Now, you might have some adjectives giving some descriptive forms. As a matter of fact, the adjectives will always come outside of the chain. Adjectives never break the chain. They're on the outside. We'll see that later. But the first one is, in fact, the construct form. And we'll talk about what that is in a minute and how to recognize it. It's not that difficult, but it just a lot and can feel confusing. So that's the most important thing right now. We're going to create this chain of words, chain of nouns, and one of them is going to be its lexical form, its absolute form, hamelech. Hamelech is, you already know that word. It's the definite article, right? The definite article and then the word king, melech. That's a segment noun with the accent on the first syllable, and just happens to be. And then we have this other eretz, another segment noun, eved, that is in the construct position and the construct noun. And basically, it would become the servant, eved, or the bond servant of the king. And that's really all it does. So the first two nouns in the construct chain is called, this is called the first of the two nouns right here is called the construct noun. It's said to be in a construct state. Basically, it's spelled differently. Basically, because it's in the construct state, it is dependent upon the absolute noun. It cannot have meaning independent of itself. Even though the noun, ebed, means bondservant, when you put it in its construct state, it doesn't carry the meaning until, it still means bondservant, but it doesn't carry the meaning until you put it in relationship to the absolute noun, the lexical form. And that's how you get servant of the king. And it's a relationship between the two. Okay, so the first noun is said to be in construct state. The second of the two nouns is called the absolute noun, and it's said to be in the absolute state. That is your lexical form. It's what you've already learned. Every noun you've learned so far is an absolute state. Dictionary form, lexical form, vocabulary form, nothing new. Okay, we're just going to call it absolute now. All right. So what happens is that when you look at a construct chain, right, it's going to be there's a chain, and so forth. It can be either definite or indefinite. What defines whether it's definite or indefinite is the absolute noun. Because the construct noun never takes a definite article. The definiteness or the indefiniteness of the construct chain is determined by the definiteness or indefiniteness of the absolute noun. Absolute noun, absolute noun, absolute noun, absolute noun, absolute noun, absolute. It's at the end of the chain. That's the absolute. So whether or not the chain is definite or indefinite depends upon the absolute noun. And if there's a, whatever the definiteness of the absolute noun is, the whole chain is that. If the absolute noun is indefinite, a voice of a man, the whole chain is indefinite. If the absolute noun is definite, the voice of the man, the whole chain is definite. Everything is definite then. And that's an important thing to recognize.
That was my first question when I saw the first example. I say, how can we know that when it's a man or the man? But it's clear now.
Yeah, we're going to go a little more deeper in that. And actually, we've already done this next slide, I think. Yeah, you already know. You all had it on the quiz. A noun is considered to be definite under 3 circumstances, right? The first one, if it has a definite article, right? Our definite article is the I must have touched something unintendedly. From present. No, that's not what I want. Present from current. There we go. Okay. Here's our definite article, right? Now the definite article is the patake with the dogged forte. Now this, obviously, if you remember, this is a guttural, cannot take a dogged forte or a lene, so we get compensatory lengthening, and so that becomes a kamate. So there's nothing new here, but the point here is, in fact, that here is the absolute noun. It is definite. It's the man, and so hence the voice, even though there's no article here, there's nothing here, the voice of the man, okay, because the absolute is definite. Now, if it has a pronomial suffix on the absolute, we've already saw that. What happens when you add a pronomial suffix to a noun? It makes it possessive. If you add a pronomial suffix to a preposition, it makes it the object of the preposition. If you have a pronomial suffix to the definite direct object marker, it makes it the object marker. It makes it the definite direct object itself. So when you add a pronomial suffix to the absolute noun, it makes that absolute noun definite, even though there's no definite article there. So when you see when we add, stop that. Okay, so when we add this is the first common singular, right? The kamates, or excuse me, the heric yod. The heric yod. It makes it first common singular. So we have the king, except now it's my king. And think about it. My king is definite. I mean, it's not a king, it's my king. That's definite. Definite is pointing to something specific. And so possessive is actually more definite than the king. It's more identifiable. So it's even more definite. Okay. If it's a proper noun, like a name like Yahweh or Samuel, Shamuel, then that is also makes it a definite. So all proper names are definite. That's why it's the servant, even though there's no article anywhere, the servant of Samuel. So those are the 3 things. You already know that. But very important to remember, and as we move forward, because so we see here. Now, the other thing I want to mention is that you can have multiple construct nouns. You will only have one absolute at the end. You can have adjectives going in. We're talking about nouns, right? One absolute noun at the end. It may be definite, may be indefinite. But you can have multiple construct nouns. They're nouns that you already know. We're going to change the spelling, change the vowel structure in order to put it in construct form or state, and it fits as a construct chain, right? Here's the chain. And that's all we're really doing with that. So clear this out a little bit. So here we have the word for servant, Eved, bondservant. Here we have the word for father, but notice it has a excuse me, brother, it has a pronominal suffix. And here we have the word for melech with the definite article. And so we get the servant of the brother of the king. I need to look, though. I'm not sure why that's not my brother of the king. The servant of my, I think probably because the two combined, but I haven't really looked at why. Let's see, that's a noun, it makes it possessive. So I'm thinking that should be mine, but I could be wrong. I'll look at it. But understand the point. The servant of a definite brother, my brother or the brother of the king. So we have, look, so what's happened here is this is of is in between, of is in between. And so the servant of, we'll just say my brother of the king. You see that?
It makes no, it would make no sense in English or Spanish because you cannot say my brother of the king. So it has to
And that's
be,
probably what's translated I think literally my brother of the king, probably more the servant of the brother is probably a smoothing out of the translation. I think, thank you.
because that was my first thought too. I saw E at the end and said, what? But then it has to make sense. So that's why.
I think that's what they did. I think they should have been a little more literal and made it my, but then maybe put parentheses the, that would help, I think, for grammatical understanding here. So here we have, here's our absolute. I like to look at the absolute first. And so it has the definite article with the comments hey. That's a compensatory lengthening because of the aleph in front of it or preceding it or after it. And there's edits, land or king or earth. And so we have the king because it's the king. And then we have of, and then we have the preposition all of, there's another of right there, the earth. That's all you're doing. So the key is, can you recognize the construct noun? Well, we're talking about how to do that here in just a minute, okay? So here's a longer one. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 construct nouns and the absolute here. This is from, let's see, I think it's MAME. Do that differently. Come on. Oh, that's right. Can't do it that way. That's terrible. Anyway, final mem. That is the word for mother. And when you put it in here we have the possessive. This is the third singular masculine singular for, that's why it's his mother. And when you add that, you're going to get this change here with the mem and the doggish. We can get into that if you want, but that's what happens, and that shortens. So here we have here the longer one. We have all. There's all. Put the of here, of the family. Okay, so because this is absolute because it has a pronominal suffix. We have the family or clan, and we have of, and then we have basically the house, and then we have of the father, of his mother. And that's what you're doing. You just got to walk through it one piece at a time. When you see a bunch of nouns side by side, you're quite possibly looking at a construct chain. We'll show you how to recognize the construct noun here in just a minute. I think it might be next. Let me see if I remember right. No, we're going to actually walk through other forms here. So before we actually dissect it, we're going to walk through some other forms. So when you can have a construct chain also with inseparable prepositions, right? The ba, the ka, and the la, the bait, the cough, and the lamed. For example, in, right? You recognize in, and it's the house of David. Well, here's David, so that's a proper noun. Hence, it's in the absolute state. It's because it's a proper noun, it is definite, and that's why you have in the. Here's house bait, bait in the house of David. Here's like, and we have all. There's our word for all, and we add of in between, and there's our definite article of the nations. There's let's see, how's it spelled? It's I'm trying to remember how to spell it. I think it's goy. Yeah, goy. Goy with that. Yeah, goy. That's not right. That might be right. I think it might be. Yeah, that's it. Goy. So nations are people, right? And so, like all of the nations. Same thing here. There's two. There's the people. It's the because there's our absolute with the earth or the land. And here we have to or toward the people of, put our of in between, the land. And that's what you're doing. It's the same thing. You're just doing it with a inseparable preposition. Okay, now with adjectives. Remember, adjectives can do really three things, right? An adjective can attribute something, can qualify something, can describe something, right? So it's going to attribute something to the noun it's modifying. It can actually stand in place of a noun, substantival. Remember that? And it can also function predicately. Now, you're not going to have the predicately, I don't believe, in the Hebrew construct chain, but you will see adjectives as part of the construct chain, actually outside of the construct chain, associated with nouns in the construct chain to either describe or potentially even stand alone or substantively. For example, here is our absolute noun, the queen, ha-malakah, and here's davar. It is the word, and here's good. How do we know the good goes with davar? See, the good word. How do we know it goes here and not here?
It makes sense.
No, you could say the good.
The good queen of the word.
Say the word of the good queen.
The word of the good queen, can you answer it? I mean, can you translate like that?
No, that would be
The
wrong.
word of the good queen.
That would be wrong in this case. That would be incorrect. Okay. Why is it incorrect? Remember what an adjective has to do. It has to agree with the noun it modifies in gender, number, and definiteness. Now here, everything is definite because the absolute is definite. So everything is. So that's why this has to be definite. Now that doesn't help you to say, well, does it go here or does it go here? But it also has to agree in gender and number, right? Well, the gender here is masculine, if I remember right. I'm going to memory. Of course, queen.
It's feminine.
Feminine, right? Now, good can be either. But if it was feminine, it would have what? It would have a ha at the end of it in order to agree with the feminine, just like this does. But it doesn't have it. So that you know that from that, but you also know it from the fact that this is well, no, we'll leave it that way because it's not. This is singular and this is singular, but so is this. But the fact that this is masculine, not feminine. This is masculine, not feminine. You know it's defining the good word of the queen. Make sense? Okay.
Second one is the word of the good queen.
Yes.
In this case, the order changed, right? The order of the absolute.
No, it did not. The absolute is still here. It has not moved. It's still exactly the same. It's a feminine with the kametz hey at the end of it, right? Remember the feminine is kametes hey, kamate, or maybe the tav with a segol, or a tav with a padak and other things, right? So it is in fact remains, it is feminine.
Hatoba.
But now we added the feminine on here, on the
Mhm.
hatov.
Hato-
Yeah, hatova. So it now aligns and agrees here. It does not agree here because that is still masculine. It doesn't agree. So it is the word. So we still have the word. It's the because this is the absolute is definite. It's still the word, and now it's of the good queen. Good queen. I know it's messy. Of the good queen. You see how that works?
Yeah, I was thinking that I was putting in my mind that always the absolute was in the most left part. So that is
Okay.
why I got
Oh, I
confused.
understand, but here's what's happening now. The absolute chain, here's the chain, cannot be broken. So adjectives will be outside of the chain, but notice an adjective is not a noun, it's an adjective. So you cannot interrupt the noun connectivity. They need to stand side by side. That's how you know it's an absolute. That's one of the ways you know it's an absolute chain. You know the beginning and you know the end. You can find the beginning and the end, and that's how you know to keep doing of, whatever case. But so if there is an adjective, it will be outside of that. Unfortunately, it won't be in red to make it easier for you to identify, but know that's always outside of that. This is an adjective. You know, tov is an adjective, not a noun. So just your knowledge of that, and because it's an adjective, I can go toha and make it feminine, right? An adjective can be has to agree with a noun it's going to modify. So it has to be able to be masculine and or feminine. All right, now this last one. Here's ambiguity now. Look, here's our hatov. All right, here's our absolute. It's definite, so everything is definite. Everything will be. Hence, this is going to be the word of the king. Good. It's outside the chain, so you don't do the of. It's outside the chain. Good, the good. Well, here's the problem. That is masculine singular, and this is masculine singular. This is masculine singular. Which one does it go to? You don't know. That's why you got this ambiguity: the good word of the king or the word of the good king. Then it can be either or. In context, we'll have to tell you that. But notice it's the either or because that agrees with everything in the chain. So that's what you're really looking for. Make sense? Okay. Okay, now when you use a demonstrative adjective, you know, this and that, those, these, right? The demonstrative is the exact same thing. We're not going to do anything different, right? The demonstrative adjective modifies the construct or the absolute noun. Either one has to follow the entire chain. So it's outside of the chain. It's an adjective or a pronoun. It has to agree with the noun and modifies in gender, number, and definiteness, right? So here it agrees with, here's this, and here we have again this, and here's the good. Well, we'll stay with one at a time, I guess. So here's our absolute, the prophet. Hence this the words plural because of the kamates sere, the word. So we got the, it's definite because the absolute is definite. The words plural of, we'll put our of, excuse me, of goes here, of this prophet. It modifies the prophet, of this prophet. It agrees with the prophet in definiteness. They're both definite. It agrees in gender. They're both masculine. It agrees in number. They're both singular. So it goes with here. This is plural. This is plural, so it cannot modify words. It's plural. This is singular. Same thing here. Here's our plural, the words And here's our absolute with the definite article. So the whole thing is definite as a result. So the words of the prophet. Here's the good, and then this, right? So now here's the question. This is still going to go to good. This good, though, is going to be, it's definite, it's masculine, and it's singular. Well, this is plural. So it can't go there. So it has to be this good prophet, the words of this good prophet. Things you've already learned, now you're just applying it in a construct form, okay? Nice thing about when you've already learned and you're applying it, it helps cement it. It helps you to make it more familiar. So the more you do it, the more you become comfortable with it. Now let's talk about how you begin to recognize them, okay? Well, actually, there's one more thing here. Adjectives in the construct chain state can be substantival. Remember, an adjective can do three things: stand alone as a noun, even though it's not a noun, right? The good, the beautiful, good, the bad, the ugly. It can function as a noun, and the same thing here. And so here's the word for beautiful, and here's the word for appearance, and it's beautiful of appearance. Here's the word for wise. We add our of. Here's heart. And so wise of heart. Now, notice that there's no definite article. There's nothing to make either one of these definite, right? Nothing at all. So they're going to stay indefinite. Clean it up a bit here. And now we have holy, and we have here Israel. Well, Israel is a proper noun. So that makes the whole thing definite. Okay, here's holy, and because it's definite, now it's the, and it's standalone, it's the holy what? The holy one, the holy person, the holy one of Israel. Okay? Now we're talking about spelling, how to recognize it. So you see what it's doing, right? Basically, you're getting a chain where one or two or more nouns are side by side. Cannot be interrupted with an adjective. The adjectives will be at the end of it. And the first noun, the last noun, whether it's two or more, the last noun will be the absolute. And anything before that, whether it be one or two, will be in the construct state. Construct, T-R-U-C-T. So the question is, how do you recognize the construct state? All right. So there's really two major overall perspectives of how to do that. One is we're going to see vowel reduction. You've already seen vowel reduction. We're going to see this. We're going to use the exact same rules we've done before and see the vowels reduce. I'm going to show you why they reduce. And then two, a change to the ending of the construct noun. Well, you already saw that in pronominal suffixes. When we added a pronominal suffix to a noun, that basically changed the syllabification. That changed the number of syllables, and that forced the earlier, because the accents was normally at the end, not always, but normally at the end, that forced the earlier syllables, the previous syllables, the pretonic and propretonic syllables, to shorten or to reduce in some way, generally. So we're going to do the same thing here. So we're not doing anything new, we're just applying it here. So we're using the same rules we've had before. But what happens is the reason is what happens in the construct state, the noun in the construct state, the nouns in the constructs change, they lose their accent. Normally, we'll have the accent at the last syllable of the noun. But when it goes into construct form, its accent's given up, it's surrendered, it quits, it goes away. I've had enough of this, and it goes to the absolute, takes it over. So the emphasis is going to be on the absolute noun. And that's why this is changing. That's why you get vowel reduction, and that's why there's changing in the end of the construct noun. We've already seen that. Now we're just going to apply it. Now we haven't seen the loss of the accent to another noun. Well, actually, we have slightly on, but anyway, I'm not going to get into that. All right, so now we're going to do a little practice. Just to remember, because what happens is this is the absolute noun, right? How many, let me ask somebody here. Patrick, can you hear me? How many syllables are here? How many syllables? 1, 2, 3, 4.
2.
2, very good. Where is the dividing line for the syllables?
Between the dialects and the,
Debate.
yes.
Yes, absolutely correct. Let me change colors here. So, okay, so there's the dividing line. All right. Now, we did these rules back on, and I hate going through rules. I can't stand rules. I'm a rule breaker my whole life. Always did what I wanted. I didn't care what they said. It's not 100% true, but that was my typical way of life. What page was that on? Hold on a minute. I think it's page. I'm getting close. I'm getting close, I think. No, it's in this chapter. I looked at it just the other day, and I can't remember where it was. Hold on a minute, I'm gonna find it though. So that you could find, I want you to have these. It's not there, I think. No, it's not that far away. I think it's page 30 or something. I know because I wrote all over it. I've got so much writing, I can't read half of it. Okay, page 23 and 24 in your book. That's the additional information under chapter 3, under syllabification and pronunciation, 3.13, number 1 and 2. Number 1 and 2 and number 3 gives you the 5 rules, vowel preferences. The first 2 are in number 1. Short vowels prefer either a closed unaccented syllable or they prefer an open accented syllable. And then, so that's 2 of the rules. And then on number 2 on page 24, long vowels prefer either a closed accented syllable or a open pretonic syllable. That's numbers 3 and 4. And so I want to illustrate this. We've already done these rules, but so this is a long vowel, correct? All right, it's a long vowel because it's what? It's open and unaccented. Just do it that way, unaccented. It's open, right? And it's unaccented. So here it is, open and unaccented prefers long vowels. That's why it's a long vowel. Come-H is a long vowel. This is also a long vowel, and it's a long vowel because it's closed and accent. Remember, our accent is generally at the end of the syllable, the last syllable, right? So this becomes what you call the tonic syllable. This would be the pre-tonic syllable. And because this is closed, right? It's closed because there's a consonant here closing it off. And here, and because it is a closed accented syllable, it prefers long vowels. Devar is a great way to remember the rule. That's how I remember it, okay? Because I don't remember it unless I write down Devar. Then I know, okay, that is a open, unaccented, and it's a long vowel. That is a closed accented, and it's a long vowel. Now I know where long vowels belong, and that's how I do that. Now in Ebed, here we have how many syllables, David?
2 as well,
2. Where's the dividing line?
between the ayin and bet,
Yeah. Okay. And notice where's the accent this time?
and on the pretonic.
Yeah. So we have here, actually this, yeah, this would be the accented syllable. It's
Oh, the tonic, yeah.
a segment noun. Now, right? And so ultimately, where this is an open, but it's unaccented, this is a closed, or excuse me, open as well, but now it's accented. And so an open accented is going to prefer a short vowel. And there's the short vowel. And so here is a closed, it's this one here, there's no accent here. It is a closed syllable because it's closed off with the consonant. And closed unaccented prefers a short vowel. That's how I remember the rules. I use those two words, davar and evid, and they help me remember what's happening here. Now, do you really need to know all the rules? Maybe not. Do you really need to see all the changes? Not necessarily, but it does, in my mind, help. When what we're going to do is we walk through this, we're going to see some nouns will change and some nouns will not. You want it to change. Because if you know the word davar, that means word, matter, or thing, and some other things. If you know the word davar spelt with a kamates and a kamates, dalet, beit, resh, then you see it differently. You're going to, hey, wait a minute, that's different. Red flag. And it could be in a construct state, and that helps you to say, oh, is this a construct chain? And if it has changed, that makes it much easier. So you want it to change. We're going to talk about that. So what actually happens here? So if we move forward here, let's see if I can remember this. So we take our davar, and basically we're going to make it add a pronominal suffix. And the pronominal suffix now makes a possessive, right? My words, first common plural. And so what was here is the kamates, and what was here is the kamates is going to change. And the reason it's changed is the accent that was here, right, is gone. It went to the absolute. Now they're all on accent. Same number of syllables. Number of syllables hadn't really, well, in some cases it will change. In this case, it did not. Well, actually, it does change, excuse me. So we have 3 syllables, right? So here is they're all protonic or pretonic, protonic, really, because the absolute is way over here somewhere, and that's where the accent goes. And so we have, it's a var, not a resh. Okay. All right, so we have, let's see, this is going to reduce to a shava, and this, I believe it, change to a pocket remained the same. I can't even remember. Anyway, we're going to walk through it and see it. So that's what's happening because the accent moves. I don't remember all the changes. I'll have to look at it. Let's see if I can walk through it. There's the heric. That's the pronominal suffix. So that becomes my. There's the var, the second syllable, and it is let's just walk through it. It's a open. It is unaccented. So if it's open and unaccented, it can remain a long vowel. Here now, this is open and unaccented. Wait a minute, that's not right. Something changes. It has to be a short vowel. I think it comes up here. Let me walk through this here because it makes it easier. All right, so here's the word judgment. Mishpat. So it is a closed, unaccented, and so mish, and that's why it's closed unaccented. That's why it has a short vowel. And pot is a closed accent, and that prefers the long vowel. But when I put in the construct chain, it loses the accent. There's no accent here. So the accent moved, and so now it becomes a closed, unaccented. Just do CA, unaccented, and it prefers a short vowel. This stayed the same because it's still a closed unaccented. So now this word judgment becomes judgment of. That's how you know it has is in the construct state. Can you see that? Okay, so far? All right. Wilderness. Okay, here we go. There's a closed, unaccented, refers to short vowel. Here's a closed, accented, refers a long vowel. It's the same rule we just learned, right? Closed accent prefers a long vowel. Closed unaccent prefers a short vowel. From page 23 and 24. And so the word here, midbar, becomes midbar, because now this is no longer accent. That accent went to the absolute. It's gone. And so because of that, that changes. Is now a closed short, or it's closed unaccented, just like this is a closed unaccented. They both have short vowels. So wilderness in a construct state is going to basically have the product there and not the commate, and it becomes wilderness of. Okay, here's a one syllable monosyllabic. Bane, that is a long vowel, right? It's accented. Well, that fits our rule. A closed accented long vowel. Well, that's what this is. It is a closed. I hate to write all over this thing and you guys lose it. This is a closed, right? Accented. It's not shown, but it's where the accent is. So that's why it has a serrate. It has a long vowel. Bane. Now, when you lose the accent goes to the absolute. That is now a closed unaccented. So just like we've seen already, changes to a short vowel. Son of. So that's how you know it's in a construct change. You don't really have to know why it changed, but you should be able to recognize, oh, wait a minute. Bane is the normal word for son. Ben, what is that? Well, that's son in a construct state. And that's that's happening, okay? So spelling changes. Here's coal, meaning all, right? There's our holum. And then we basically shorten it because this is one closed accented syllable. That's why it has the long vowel holum. When we close it with no accent went to the absolute. Then this shortens. Now, that's the kamet hatuf, which is also an O sound. But it's a shorter O than the long O. And so you remember kamet hatuf, it's going to be found, if this kamet is here and it's in a closed unaccented, it's a kamet hatuf, not a kamet. And a lot of times, closed unaccented, accent moved, this is a kamet hatuf. If you had a little line there, what's that called? Peak? Can't remember. Then that will tell you, oh, that's not a hatuf, it's a kamet, but it's not the case here. Okay, so that's what's happening. You get vowel reduction, and it's often going to reduce because the accent moved away. Think about it this way: if the accent's on the end, the phonetic sound, the sound needs to be more softer. I hate to say softer, but lighter, not as strong as it will be at the end. So you put the strength at the end, not at the beginning, and that's what the vowel structure is doing. Okay.
Real quick. This just alters the spelling, right? But in order to say it, it doesn't change the accent.
Oh no, the accent's gone.
So how can you spell
So you would
with
pronounce this right.
a word without accent?
Well, meat spot, and now meat bake. You just don't put the emphasis. Accent's really more about emphasis. Used to be accent, might be, I'm not sure about Hebrew, I know in Greek, accent was more about sort of like a musical tone where you go up or down, or going up versus down, meets baked, or meets bought, up or down kind of thing. But now it's more emphasis, meets spot. Put the accent or the emphasis on the end. But now I'm going to put it without an emphasis. It's going to be meat spot. There's no emphasis. So it's a nuance. I get it. But, that's all you're really doing here. Because the emphasis is going to go in the absolute. So it does change your pronunciation. One, pronunciation because of the vowel pointers. And two, because there's no emphasis. If you were to pronounce this word, meat spot, you'd be wrong. You put the emphasis on the first syllable. It doesn't belong there. Beats pot is where it goes. Make sense? Okay. All right. Let's see. We're getting there. Ooh, I got about 5 more minutes. All right. So I'm going to run through some of this. We're doing the same thing over and over again. All right. Here's our prophet, Navi. And once again, this is because we're going to make it prophet. It's prophet is the word. Prophet is still the word, but it cannot stand alone now. It's because it's prophet of, and it needs that relationship for the absolute. It has to have that. Otherwise, it's really prophet of what? What are you talking about? It makes no sense. So it has to have the absolute here. And so what happens is because the accent it went to the absolute, it's not there anymore. We're going to see this reducing. Now, what happens is I'm going to point this out because I had to look this up. So here's our syllabification, and what you have here is a open unaccented, and that's why it's a long vowel there. This is a I believe it's open. It's still open because that does not count. There's rules behind it, but I had to figure this out. I said, why is that way? That makes sense. It's open accent, and that's why it has a short vowel there. Now, when you move over here, it's still here open. It's now open unaccented, and this is open unaccented. They both take short vowels because this is now open unaccented versus. Wait a minute. I don't remember. I looked this up and now I've forgotten. Well, let me not confuse you guys. Here's the key. You're going to get this changeable long vowels in an open syllable. Changeable, right? Changeable, changeable, changeable. This is not changeable. This is not changeable. They're unchangeable vowels, long vowels. These are changeable. They can reduce. They can reduce to a podic. They can reduce to a hatef or they can reduce to a shava. And so what happens? They reduce to shava. That because it's a guttural hatef podic and the shava there. And so I forget exactly why it does that. I looked it up now. I forgot. No, I apologize. Now we get vowel reduction and rule shava 1. Again, you've already done this. That goes back to page. Page 18 and 19. Actually, it's page 19, well, 18, number 1. It's 3.6, number 1, and it's number B, 1B on page 19. So what happens is here's blessing, right? Blessing, this is a vocal shava. This is so that's a syllable there. That's a syllable there. And ultimately, this has a long vowel. What happens is when you move the accent away, this becomes a shava, and that becomes a shava. And you cannot have two shava, vocal shavas. This is a vocal. This is a vocal. Can't have it. Remember, that's what our rule number 1B, I think it is, on that page I gave you. You can't have two vocals. So what happens is these two contiguous is ultimately this changes to a heric, and this becomes a closed silent shava. Silent shava. And so that's why that changes there. Same thing here, same thing here. Okay. But here's the real important. Even if you don't remember the rules, I like to know the rules. It helps me understand why it changed. You see, that's the word. That's the word. That's the word in its absolute form. When you see it in a different form, you have to ask yourself why. Why is that different? What's changed? Just the vowels pointing system. Well, it kind of means you need to know the vocabulary, doesn't it? And then you see something different, you start questioning it. And ultimately, if you don't really know why it changed, okay, you don't have to know why it changed. Just know that it did. That's the important thing. Okay, masculine plural and dual nouns. Very simple. Here's our masculine plural, Elohim, plural, right? The red, Elohim. It's masculine. To make it plural, we have the final mem, the heric yod. All we do, pretty simple. In a construct form, we drop the mem and we make it a cetera instead of a heric. That's it. And pretty much the same thing over and over again. So it changes to a yod cetera versus a yod heric. Instead of a yod heric final mem, it changes to a yod cetera. Or cetera yod, however you say it. And so God is now God of sons. Here's sons. Bane would be sons, plural banes. Excuse me, not bane. Banim would be the sons plural, and Bane, sons of. Dual, what happens is the same thing. Dual was the like two eyes, right? Two eyes. Here's the plural that has the diphthong. Basically, it goes away and is replaced with the Sereyo. And that's all that's happening. Feminine singular, pretty straightforward. Kamete, 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 that's normal. You see it all the time. But when you put it in a construct form, and we've seen this before, hey is a weak consonant. It doesn't like to, when changes occur, it runs. In this case, it actually strengthens, and that hey becomes a tav. And that's what happened. You've already seen that before. And so basically, in the construct form, law, Torah, becomes Toreh. Melkah becomes Melkeh. Year, Shana becomes Shaneh. Shanek, excuse me. Gotta put the TH sound there. I think we're almost, now we've got a couple more slides. Let's go get through real quick here. Time is, okay, I got 2 minutes to finish. All right, feminine singular, well, we just did that. Feminine plural, really easy, nothing changes. Now the negative about nothing changes is it makes it a little more difficult to recognize that it is in a construct chain. You have to look at the context and you'll figure it out. But generally speaking, when you got a bunch of nouns side by side, that's your flag. That's your first flag. So it stays the same. The feminine plural endings don't change. They're still the whole. And the reason is that's a unchangeable long vowel, and the tav is a very strong consonant, and so it doesn't change. Masculine nouns ending with sagol hey, very weak, very weak, very weak, and it basically strengthens here with from the sagol to sere. Just with the sagol hey to a sere hey. And that's how you know it's a field. There's our word for field, right? Sadeh. Now it's sadeh. Monosyllabic nouns, okay? Av is father, ach is brother, and peh is mouth. And for monosyllabic, we add the heric yod, and basically it becomes brother of, father of, brother of, mouth of. So again, the hey drops, right? And you add the heric yod. Now that doesn't occur on all monosyllabic nouns, but it does occur on a lot of them. Plural seglet nouns. What happens with a plural seglet nouns? You add the heric yod final mem for masculine form, and the same thing that we already saw. The mem drops off, and you get the heric yod becomes a heric sere, or excuse me, a sere yod. So the same thing. Diphthongs, we already looked at the diphthong. Basically, the diphthong goes away and it's replaced with the sere hey.
Brother, how can we identify when we have the here yod and is the father of? Oh, okay, can be father of my father. Nah, I got it. Can be either one, right?
No, it's not going to be that. And here's how you know. Look at the difference. I want you to look very carefully. Okay. Even here, if I were to make it father of, then you're given the. I can't remember if that changes. I don't believe it. It does not change to this, but I believe it stays the same. If I remember, I have to look it up. But that is going to be your clue. That is a father of a in the construct form.
Okay. When it's short is father of,
This would
and
be
when it's
my
not.
father.
Mhm.
This would be father of, because that changed.
Got it, got it.
Diphthongs, they change to the unchangeable long vowel. So here you have two kinds of diphthongs. You have the AY, which is, they get the ite, and this would be bite. It uses the comment, the parak and the hierarchiod. It's what's called AY. This is the AW, a vav, and because it uses the vav versus the yod. So either way, that changes to the unchangeable holon vav. That changes to the unchangeable vav srei, srei yod. Excuse me. All right. Here's some things don't change at all, and that just makes it harder. Especially segment nouns. Segment nouns are a unique character. They don't always change a lot, and they can make it a little more difficult and to recognize a construct chain. But if you have other nouns next to it, that's your suspect. I mean, you can say, wait a minute, how am I going to say voice king him, or voice king it, or whatever the case may be? Well, that might be your clue that it's in a construct form. It's the voice of the king, something of that nature. And that's it, guys. So that's a lot to absorb, but I want you to realize that, number one, okay, that all we're really doing is we're seeing two forms of the same noun. We learned the absolute. You learned that as your vocabulary, as a lexical form, but you can change that form to make it in a construct. And that's when it's showing relationship, the king, the Lord of the people, and it's because it's changed to the construct state, and when it does that, the accent for the construct noun goes away. It actually moves over to the absolute. The absolute's always the last. You cannot break the chain. You can't put adjectives in the middle of it. The chain will stand alone. The construct noun cannot stand alone. It needs the absolute to have meaning. It has no meaning without it. The Lord of what? It's useless. So you have to say the Lord of the people, whatever it is, right? So that's some of the major things. You don't necessarily need to know all the rules. For me, it's helpful to kind of see what's happening, but you need to recognize, that's why it's important to know the vocabulary. Something changed. And then see the construct chain and know that the absolute's the last word of the chain, and the first word and anything in between is going to be in the construct form. And normally that means a spelling change. And then you just go, okay, if it's the whole thing's definite or the whole thing's indefinite, the word of the people of the God, and so you just keep doing that. And so it's really not overly complex, but it's new. You're just applying things you already kind of know in a different way, and it makes it a little more feels overwhelming. And I know it can be when you first look at it, but how do you say the love of God without the word of? Well, you build a construct form and you make a construct chain. That's how you do it. Okay? Any questions? All right, I got 2 minutes. If you're going to the preacher prep and delivery of sermons class, let me get off. And if you're not, I have to get off so you can get on. I'm going to make sure the homework gets updated so that you're not overwhelmed with it, but you do want to practice this. Use Friday for questions and answers. It helps if you get the homework done in advance. Do questions and answer with Damien and Andres. Helps if you do the quiz afterwards, because now you got, if you got a really good understanding, fine. If not, it's easier sometimes to wait till afterwards. Okay? And
All right.
we're talking to a couple individuals about getting caught up, and we'll work with you to do that. It doesn't help, though, if you're listening to this recording and you're not here. Hard to get caught up. I realize, though, hey, I'm behind. I don't understand what he's talking about. Yeah, because you're behind. Well, let's get caught up, but it doesn't help to miss this. It's hard to catch up. I realize some of it may seem confusing because you haven't. It's always a building block form. If you feel like you're jumping in the middle, it's kind of confusing, but it will come together at some point. All right? All right, thank you
All right.
guys.
Thank you, Brother
Thank
Dave.
you.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
So
All right, I'm gonna close it so that
All righty.
the other guy can get on. Bye.